Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading for January 2025 finale video. Seeing that we are now in early February, I'm actually still not quite finished with a couple of the books that I started in January, but I am hoping that I will be very soon. Knock on wood. It would be great to get started on some February reading, especially now that the BookTube Prize has officially commenced. So I start these videos by recapping a short story, and this month, or last month, I happened to be reading from the Best American Short Stories collection that was released in 2024. I have about 5 stories left to go, but recently I read Pea's Parties by Jhumpa Lahiri, which is kind of significant for me because this is one of the stories that Jhumpa Lahiri published in her latest collection called Roman Stories. Jhumpa Lahiri technically has or had been a favorite author of mine, but I put on the back burner starting Roman Stories because I've been less than impressed with her foray into Italian fiction. She did originally publish this in Italian, and then with the help of someone else, she translated this particular story into English. But with this story, I found it to be more compelling than I recall her other Italian translated stories to be. It was longer, there was more meat on the bones. In the story, we're following this protagonist who's this middle-aged Italian man. He and his wife belong, well, to a loose social set, and every year they go to a party at P's house. And the narrator is a writer himself, and I think his favorite part of this is the P, this woman, has an eclectic group of friends, some from the international school that her children go to, and he kind of gets inspired by the people he meets, and they become, characters in his stories. But of course, things shift a little with this, this particular, real story that we're reading, and he is sort of taken out of it a little bit when one of the kids who's at the party has this, brief accident to where he faints and the doctor is called, and I think this freaks him out a little because he's a father himself, although his child is older, and his issues with that are more about getting estranged from his child and having to let go of the reins a little. But anyway, this child who was who fainted, ultimately it's okay, but his the child's mother is an outsider because she's somebody who is not a native Roman, and she is still a little freaked out by how did this happen. So I don't know, it takes him out of it a little. There's this sort of tension there, and it grows a bit where I guess in terms of his imaginings, he's actually imagining the possibility of having an affair with this woman, his life's, and I guess a little bit of ennui in a way with his own wife, and things sort of take on unusual twists and turns from there. P has a party that isn't at the normal time of year, and it's a little bit different, and this narrator gets more involved in this foreign woman's life, except that actually it's his wife who starts a little bit of a relationship with her, sort of a casual friendship. And then ultimately the story ends where they go to this island where P and her family spend their summers, and it was sort of foreshadowed in the very first party, that it was a place where the narrator's wife had a bad formative experience growing up. And anyway, in this one, it's where the relationships kind of really start to fray because the protagonist makes a move on this other woman. It's almost like he'd been starting to write a story where he actually has an affair with her, and that seems to sort of propel him into making the move. And so that starts a big argument with his wife, and it certainly ruins that relationship. And then P ultimately dies. So, this whole endeavor of going to the party and being inspired by it, it all sort of, comes to an end. And I guess I like the story up to a point, but I feel like the trouble with following writers as protagonists is that they make things seem artificial. Like the actual character in the story is like taking a step back from reality and events and, forcing things and like seeing things in patterns that, make it seem artificial, I think. Like, make life seem artificial. I mean, I think when a lot of people write or read short stories and novels, there are, patterns and character arcs and plot arcs. But, to have a character within the story, trying to, mold them makes, it's like seeing the man behind the curtain in a way, and it makes it, seem unreal. So that's what I struggled with this, and certainly the writing isn't as lyrical as when Lahiri wrote in English. But I do at least think there, was something more substantive here than I remember in her other Italian fiction. So I don't know, maybe I'll, finally, ultimately pick up romance stories. We shall see. Another story or novel, certainly novel in this case that I'm in the middle of, is The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. Actually, I have about 150 pages left in this, and given the size, that feels significant to me. In all honesty, I'd been inching through this book for a while, and I, tried to take a more significant dive this weekend, amongst other things. But I think other than, the sprawling length, this is a very popular book. It's made, short lists of major book awards, and it won the BookTube Prize, and my own sister absolutely, loved this book. And it's been on all sorts of favorite lists back in the day. And I'm setting up all the hype to say this really, I don't think it's really working for me all that well. This is postmodern, really, the way that the writing is. And again, I feel like that takes me out of the story, and it becomes more about artifice, and it becomes more about the philosophy of storytelling than about actually telling a story. Like, even as I was reading some reviews of the book, and I gravitated toward mixed reviews because, I wasn't really enjoying it, although still those reviews kind of were lauding the author for his ability. But it's his ability to, write about life rather than specifically what he's saying necessarily about these particular characters. I mean, there's still a disconnect or a distance, the literary great distance, a postmodern distance from actually, daring to just write about relatably and directly about humans, and even to ask for that, I wonder, is supposed to be like some of these reviews, or the better, the more highly graded reviews are the ones that really say, well, some people just won't get it, and it's like, automatically supposed to maybe put us in our place if we don't like it. Like, maybe you're just not intellectual enough, or maybe I'm just feeling defensive, and I don't feel great not connecting as well with the winner of the BookTube Prize or a book that my sister likes, but I'm not really connecting with it. I mean, there are some moments where I, feel compelled by what's happening to this family as it's slowly devolving thanks to, it's an Irish family in mostly contemporary times, and due to, the economic crash and due to, interpersonal drama, the family is, it's losing its money and it's sort of losing its grip. And, we go back and forth between following the two parents and the two children, following in the present, and then, taking big dips into the past and the backstory. One of the major things about this family is that the two parents, Dickie and Imelda, their marriage was sort of on accident in a way, because Imelda was actually involved with and in love with Dickie's brother Frank, who, died prematurely himself, and their relationship, I think, in large part started out of that grief. And anyway, there's just so many, like, writing conceits, like Imelda's, sections don't have any periods. I've never quite seen that one. I've seen, which is included in this book, having no quotation marks, but never no periods. And I just feel like in some ways it's so deliberately distancing and makes you work so hard for, what's ultimately a relatively simple story about these characters devolving. And it's so sprawling, I don't understand why, everything in these sections has to be in here. And so I think I have to make my peace with the fact that, I can see some of the merit in this, but this definitely, to me, is not a story that's blowing my socks off. And it's not going to be a favorite. It's certainly, almost definitely, I assume, I would have not voted for this book, presumably, to win the BookTube prize, although I haven't read any of the others in the ballot for the fiction finals last year. But now I just want to wrap this up and hopefully get to the BookTube prize this year, and hopefully have better luck with the books I'll be reading for my official ballots. I'm also in the middle of reading or listening to The Republic of Salt by Ariel Kaplan. This is the sequel to the Jewish fantasy novel, The Pomegranate Gate. I gotta say, I love this cover, which seems like it's been discontinued for the series, which I find is a shame. But otherwise, this is a portal fantasy novel, which takes place between two worlds. One is of medieval Spain, except technically it's a slightly different world called Sepharad, which is actually the Ladino word for Spain. And indeed, we're following pretty closely to actual history, where in 1492 the Jews were expelled from Spain, or now Sepharad. And in this world, one woman, Toba, who has some disabilities, stumbles through a portal into the world of the Mazics, which are these sort of trickster, lesser demons. It's in that world where, of course, she realizes her disabilities sort of hide actual powers and her actual ancestry, and she gets involved with the Mazic culture there, while their own culture is under a bit of upheaval, because the portal worlds are like, they mirror each other. So when, significant changes or bad changes happen in the mortal world, they also happen in the Mazic world, where, there's these like, at first, Toba is comes with to live with Amsel, who is called the Lord of Books, and there's a lot of crossover too, where famous Jewish scholars like the Rambam are in both worlds, and Toba finds some utility in translating the books, and she's also learning about her magic from Amsel and his nephew Barcelay. But then some Mazics and others of that world, there's a power shift and Toba's life is in danger. Meanwhile, back in Sepharad, Toba's neighbor Naphtali saw her go through the portal. He himself has these dreams that link him to the Mazic world. And then he and Toba's grandmother Elena and another old woman of the community break away from the community as they're trying to, find refuge somewhere else. They break away to try to, rescue Toba. They get embroiled with Barcelay, who's in the last book was deeply beaten by his enemies, and all of them are, in the Mazic world, trying to make it to a particular city in this book. And Amsel and Toba, or actually Toba Bet, because part of what happens in this book is Toba split into herself and a twin. So Toba Bet and Amsel they go through a portal during the full moon back to Sepharad, and they're also trying to make it to the same city, because the cities mirror each other, but everybody's facing danger. Barcelay, who's technically the most powerful among humans, still has to recover his magic, and Amsel in the mortal world is losing his slowly, and Toba's trying to help him stay afloat. And they're all being hunted for, the nefarious reasons of the antagonists. well, in the magic world, and then they're being hunted in part because the demons from the magic world have some sway in the mortal world, and also because, you know, of the events of the expulsion edict. This is a book, it's still pretty heavy on the mythology, which I still find fascinating. There's some interesting parallels between the things that Kaplan took inspiration from in her book. A lot of the city names are named after Jewish foods, and I've used Jewish foods in my own fantasy novel that I'm writing as some inspiration for names and so forth. So that's pretty fun. And the characters are still, you know, they're quirky and fun to follow, but I do think the mythology is the part of that's the most intriguingly developed. It's fun to follow. You know, in a way, the fantastical nature can make me take a little bit of a step back, and I care less about you know, the rationality of what's happening on the page, because it obviously it's more of a folk tale in some ways, and I'm sort of more okay with not having you know, the plottiness be too rational. But I guess I still feel like I didn't connect fully with the characters in the first book, or even in this book, although they're decent enough, and I just sort of want to see where they're going in terms of, it's just so, you know, magical and unusual a story, so that's why I'm enjoying it. And finally, a book I actually finished this week is Our Deadly Designs by Kalyn Josephson. This is also Jewish fantasy, Jewish YA fantasy. This one, I think, is definitively the conclusion of a duology. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of magical world building in this, and it's a secondary world, but I feel like the conceits are like a little less, you know, it's less like a folk tale and more like, you know, just a world with magic. So like I expect sort of more rational rules in this one, and for the most part, you know, this really held up in this world. Like in the last world, there was a bit of political upheaval in the city of Endelaine, which you know, it's ruled by these, well, it's ruled by a monarchy and royal houses that are sort of always vying for control. And a lot of the ways they, you know, wrest control from one another, it seems, is, you know, by, you know, killing each other's family members. And so some people who were the underdogs of the last story, like they used this horse race and some other political machinations to move their fortunes. So this one character, Makira, whose ranch was in danger, she wins this horse race with a enchanted horse that's actually a golem horse made by a Kinnish character, aka Jewish character, called Ari. But anyway, that, you know, changed her fortune, so now, you know, her ranch and her family technically are in a better place at the beginning of this story. And Ari and their sponsor Damien are in a better place. The two of them are now romantically involved. They both have some Kinnish ancestry, and also, you know, Damien is sort of on top of, like, his family has been, you know, elevated, and he has secret goals to ascend as far as he can and to sort of break up this sort of tyrannical monarchy. And I mean, it's not just the way that they treat each other, it's they're, you know, engaged in an eternal war of trying to steal magic from other places, and, you know, they send their own citizens, you know, lesser citizens to the machine of war all the time. So he's sort of a control freak in a way, which isn't intriguing. He is a good character, and, you know, sort of a, you know, a protagonist camp character, but at the same time his own desperation for control and his lack of ability to trust others really puts a damper in, you know, his plans and his development and his relationships. So like he starts this book where he and Makira had been working together, but now he doesn't trust her anymore because of issues from the last book. And then things are happening with Ari in this book that, you know, will test them as well, because Ari is possessed by what she calls a heretic, and that goes back to some of the magical world building of this world about these sort of godlike figures who I think started out as mortals and then, imbibed so much magic, and they started fighting, and they caused like this catastrophe that rended the world and really depleted a lot of magic in the world, and was also connected to the destruction of the Kinnish homeland. And it is the Kinnish heretic who is controlling Ari, and Ari wants to get rid of this heretic because she has magic which makes her feel powerful, which is something about, like, in her character about wanting. She felt weak and ostracized by society, and now she's powerful. But at the same time, the power gives her these blackouts, and she hurts people, including people she loves. So she's actually trying to get rid of the heretic, and she teams up with the antagonist of the last book, who's also the mortal enemy, first friend, now turned enemy of Damien, and this man's name is Rezek, who is also possessed by another heretic, and she's turning to him for help. But of course, from there, what I like about the book is I actually feel like the character motivations make sense in the moment, but you see how later how things devolve from there, and the steps she takes actually makes things more dangerous for the world, and they have to then ultimately all band together to make things better, and not to let the world devolve into another catastrophe. And yeah, there's other, political machinations happening too, and I just enjoyed following all of these threads, and I enjoyed the characters. It's kind of YA, I guess. I mean, it's a YA novel in its way, so, there's some stuff that feels a little simplistic, but I think overall, I think that the characters and plots are compelling, and I appreciate all of the work that Kaplan put into bringing all of this stuff together. So it was certainly an enjoyable read. And that about covers it for me now. I have to get myself pivoted into February reading, especially with the advent of the BookTube Prize. And with that in mind, I'll be on this channel hopefully imminently to do a brief reaction video to the ballot I was assigned for the Octafinals. Once I start reading, I can't give any of my thoughts. I have to be mum as an official judge, but I'll just give out some preliminary thoughts about the books before I get started, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you're all doing well. I've been watching a couple of January wrap-up videos where they actually finished all the books they're talking about, and I'm, going to include these in my, January wrap-up and literary newsletter that I'll hopefully get out soon, so I'd love to finish them soon, because I have a stack of books I would love to get to in February, so I'm hoping the next month I can up my game a little bit. We shall see. Of course, with work and other things, there's stuff competing for my time, but at least I'm still going, I'm still reading, still, have a lot of great potential books ahead of me, and I hope you're excited for your upcoming TBRs as well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.